Chapter number 4: Variables, Types, and Casting. The data types, the built-in data types provided by Python are string, integer, float, complex, boolean, list, tuple, range, dictionary, set, frozen set, byte, byte array, and memory view. So out of this, the ones highlighted in dark, which is string, integer, float, boolean, list, tuple, range, and dictionary, we will cover. The other ones which are not in bold format, we won't be covering. So to start with, the most basic format of data types is string. So it is just like string, like how we saw the hello world, we stored it in a variable. So that is string. An integer is a whole number, so without any decimal. So that's integer format. A float is a one variable where we store with the decimal number. So for example, 10.02. And Boolean is a value which is true or false. So you can have only two values. So this four are the most basic data types. Now next you got collection data types, collection array data types. So we'll go through them. So we have got four collection array data types. The first one is list. A list is a collection which is ordered and it's changeable. So once you create, you can it is in a particular order and you can change it as well, uh, and it allows duplicate. So tuple is a collection which is ordered and unchangeable. So when you create a tuple, it will be in certain order, but you can't change it, and it allows duplicate as well. Set is a collection which is unordered and unindexed, and no duplicates allowed. And dictionary is a collection which is ordered and changeable, no duplicates allowed. Now, all these four collection array, we will deal with it and we'll go in much detail in a separate session. So for each of this, I've given separate session. So we'll go through it in those sessions. So I've got this program called variable and types. So I wanted to show you how we store it and how we print it and what is the type of each of them. So starting with we got variable x storing in string. So and we are printing it, and I'm uh, printing the type of it. Similarly, for integer, I'm storing integer value in x, and then printing it and printing the type. So same with the float. Float takes a decimal number, so I'm storing float in the x and again printing it. Same with boolean. Um, so I'll run this program and then we'll go through the collection type as well. So let's run it. So there you go. It has run the program. So first thing, string example. Um, hello world. It has printed hello world, and it is telling me the type is a string type. Similarly, integer uh, is printed as 20 and type is integer. Float is again, it has printed the decimal number because I've given a decimal number here, and it is telling me it is of type float. So whatever, so you can notice the value of x here. The type of x is string. Here the type of x is integer, and the type of x has changed to float here. Same with the Boolean example. I'm storing x as Boolean, and then type it is showing as Boolean. Now coming to our collection array. So list is stored. So we can create a list using this syntax. It takes a square bracket, As I mentioned earlier, we'll talk about a list, tuple, set, and dictionary in much detail and we have got each session for them. But just wanted to show you the syntax for it. Allocating x variable x as the list, and then I'm checking what is the type of this list. So it is when a print statement when you say print the list, it prints the whole list like this. So how we have stored it, and also the type is list. Similarly, for tuple, we used uh, bracket, round brackets, and we can create tuple using this format. And again, we see when we print it, we see it exactly how we have stored it, and the class is tuple. Same with set. The syntax is curl bracket, as you can see, and in the result we can see curl bracket and set when we print the value in here. Now range is an interesting one. So again, we'll cover range in much more detail, but here I'm saying create a range of a 6. So x will have a value from 0 to 6, and when I printed it, it has printed the range and of type range. So that's that's about we have covered about all the variables which and the types which is useful for building our Python foundation. Next, we'll talk about casting. So you can there are three methods provided, functions provided by Python for casting. One is int, one is float, and one is string. So using this int, we can convert a string or a float into an integer. So for example, if I've got a number 10.5, and if I typecast it to int, so int 10.5, I'll get a output as 10 because it has converted the float into the integer. Similarly, if I say convert an integer to float, so if I give 10, it'll convert it into 10.00. So using this integer, I can convert a string or a float into integer. For float, I can convert a string or an integer to a float. And for string, when I use a string casting, I can convert a integer or a float into a string. Now let's have a look at an example. So let me clear this and then, yeah, example. So first example here is I'm doing a typecasting. So I'm converting. So here is a simple, I'm converting integer to integer. So x will have a value of integer. Here I'm converting float to an integer, and here I'm converting a string to an integer. So let's run it and let's see what we get. So to start with, let's run it again. There you go. So the first one is integer example. So 1 is 1. The 2.8 has become 2, and 3 string has become a 3 integer. Now, similar to this concept, we can talk about the float works in a very similar way, that it converts integer float or a string into a float. So, for example, I've got 1 becomes 1.0, 2.8 remains 2.8, string 3 becomes a float 3.0, and a float 4.2 is 4.2. So that's our float example, and let's have a look at the string example. So in this, I've taken a string s and s1, convert string s1 to string, convert second, I'm converting integer 2 to string, and third is float to string 3.0. So when I run it, s1 remains as it is, the integer becomes a string, so integer 2 becomes a string, and 3.0 again becomes a string. So it is a string, not a float here. So z is a string. So there you go. So in this chapter, we have learned about all the different variables and types, and we have also learned about casting. From here on, we will be building all the building blocks of Python. And the best thing for you guys to do is go and practice all the different variables and types, and start getting your hands dirty, and create some programs for yourself in PyCharm or in Notepad++, as we have seen in chapter 2. At the end of session 12 or session 13, we'll talk about some real life example. So till then, I would like you to try different syntax and get yourself comfortable with all the Python syntax. I have provided the links in the description below for the Python and PyCharm download. I have also recommended 3 Python books to enhance your knowledge. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching.